Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Before I begin this video and you like to use OCD Recovery's coaching services, please reach out to Phil at ocdrecovery.com and he'll get back to you as quick as he can. So yeah, today guys, I just wanted to do a quick video about anxiety and looking at the fact that you are probably perpetuating your anxiety cycle more than you think, right? So when the anxiety sensation comes in, our reaction to that sensation is going to dictate a lot of whether the anxiety keeps coming back or whether over time it diffuses, right? Of course, there is the belief systems that we need there, the unconditional self and life acceptance, the shoulds, oughts and musts, the awfulizing about the anxiety sensation, but also it's your reaction that can be perpetuating the cycle, all right? And I'll give you an example and about my own journey. So when I used to have fear and chronic anxiety, I'd be getting triggered, hundreds, if not thousands of times a day, right? There'd be some sort of trigger, whether it was an intrusive thought, whether it was something in the environment, whether it was some light, whether it was just anything in particular that would cause the anxiety sensation to come in because my nervous system was so sensitized. That sensation would come in, bang, and then what I'd do was I would pounce on it, right? Imagine it's like a cat pouncing on a group of pigeons or something like that, right? You just pounce on it in the moment because it feels very uncomfortable, because it feels very unsettling. Your natural inclination is to just jump to it and just to try and diffuse it and get rid of that, right? And that's what I did time and time again, rinse and repeat. The trigger would come in and I would pounce on it, I'd slap that additional layer on top of it. This is awful, this shouldn't be happening, I can't stand it. Thinking about when the anxiety is going to go away, thinking in the moment about what I could do to get rid of the anxiety, what I could do to offset the anxiety. And that whole thought process as I went about my day was all geared towards the anxiety sensation itself, how uncomfortable it was and how I should get rid of it, right? Understandably so. When you're really caught in that cycle, you want to be out of that because it feels very uncomfortable. You just want to feel better, and a lot of your mindset and life is going to be geared towards, well, how do I get better, right? But that of course is part of the problem. You're adding that additional layer on top of the anxiety, the compulsion in many ways, which is trying to get rid of the anxiety, right? So you've got to think over a period of time, I need to try and react well to this anxiety sensation, right? Anxiety hits hardest when it first comes in. That initial impact, that initial second when it comes in is when it hits hardest, right? You need to get really good at just allowing that sensation to be there without adding that secondary layer on top of it. So like I've said there, when's it going to go away? When is it going to go on forever? How do I get rid of it? You need to get really good at just sitting with that initial trigger and not adding something on top of that, right? And again, I know it's very hard because it feels very uncomfortable and you don't want it to be there. But the more that you are trying to figure out when it's going to go away, the more that you are trying to offset it, the more it's just going to come back with a vengeance, because you're just reinforcing to the brain that this sensation is scary, that it's dangerous, and the brain gets stuck in that loop of just delivering that sensation, hundreds if not thousands of times a day, again and again and again. And you get frustrated and you just stay embroiled in the cycle. So what you have to do is when that trigger comes in, just allow yourself to sit with that trigger as best as you can, right? As best as you can, leave that trigger to play out, leave it there and get on with your day as best as you can, right? Yes, you're going to feel distracted. Yes, it's going to feel uncomfortable. Yes, it's not going to be easy, but it's that process of rinse and repeat time and time again. Trigger comes in, sit with trigger, carry on with day. Trigger comes in, sit with trigger, carry on with day. Trigger comes in, sit with trigger, carry on with day. And over time, as you do that, you get good at not reacting to the trigger and just leaving it there whilst getting on with your day and whilst breaking down the anxiety sensations, with fear, the fear of being stuck forever, breaking that down with unconditional self and life acceptance. That is when you're really going to start to progress with anxiety. So I can't highlight that enough. Your reaction to that sensation is driving the cycle, right? And again, like I said, it hits hardest when it first hits in that initial second. But then, of course, it gradually diffuses, right? And there'll be a different amount of time between each trigger coming in and then diffusing. I remember sometimes I'd get triggers and they'd last for a few minutes. Sometimes they'd last for 10 to 15 seconds, right? There isn't really a rhyme or reason as to why it does that. But either way, it's so important that when that trigger does come in, you just get good at not heaping those irrational demands, the shoulds and musts and the awfulizing on top of that. And that is a skill that you can get better at and cultivate as you work on the belief systems, as you work on unconditional life acceptance, and as you get more experience with the anxiety. When I first experienced anxiety sensations, I was bad at handling them because I was inexperienced with them, right? It's almost like a pilot, right? As he drives the plane, gets more air miles under his belt, he gets more experience at flying. And this is very much the same with us. As we experience more triggers, we get more experience at handling them, we can handle them better. And over time, that reaction that we once gave it, that reaction of shock and terror, we start to bring that down. And as that starts to come down, the fuel for the anxiety starts to come down as well. So yeah, be careful of how you're reacting to your anxiety sensations, because that is going to dictate a lot of whether the anxiety keeps coming back with a vengeance or not.